ironically, somebody who was not as fond of the Nico Harrison firing and somebody who typically has a background of trying to be different within this industry when it comes to hot takes and things of that nature, of course, is one Skip Bayless. I found this on Twitter, and I don't know if we'll watch the entire video for this one either, but at the same time, just thought it was really interesting that from the little snippet I did hear, this is the full 7 minutes, but a snippet that I did hear basically says that the Mavericks are foolish for moving off from Nico Harrison, and apparently him, and I think I saw a report that also says that Draymond Green both feel as though Nico Harrison got dogged and got handed a raw deal, and I'm not exactly sure fully how that's the case, but let's hear him explain himself.
I'm here in Gil's Arena getting ready for the Arena Gridiron, the NFL show that we do at 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern time. What better place for me to talk about the NBA bombshell that just dropped? Nico Harrison fired in Dallas. This is so dumb, so wrong, so ridiculously premature overreaction by this Dumont family that now owns and operates the Dallas Mavericks. Nico Harrison did not deserve to be fired. He deserved to be applauded for the team he has put together that hasn't quite taken shape. Yeah, they're 3-8 now. And Nico was there for the opener and he got booed, and he came out again last night and got booed in Dallas as they blew a late lead to the Milwaukee Bucks to fall to 3-8.
Here's the thing already. By you saying he needs to be applauded or should have been applauded already is a slap in the face to what you said throughout that portion of the explanation. Because again, being booed and being demonstratively referred to by Mavericks fans is already sending you that message of, again, being alienated as a fan base by the fact that a decision was made. A person has a face attached to the decision, and he is actively walking around acting as if his decision makes sense, was meant to truly come to fruition in a way, and essentially puts you in a weird spot if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, because you have to ask yourself, why would I clap for a guy that from the very minute he made the decision threw all the trust I had in him away? What we've built the rapport of, if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, you're saying over the last 2 years, we've watched you slowly but surely focus on trying to build this team more to center around Luka Dončić's strength, providing defensive versatility around him, getting more three-point shooting, having rim running centers who can produce around the basket at a high clip as dudes that can be highly athletic and that can be real lob threats for Luka, the way we used to see with that Houston Rockets team for James Harden, right? Having Clint Capella in the middle, having guys like Trevor Ariza and PJ Tucker and those guys as three-point shooters on the perimeter. He found a formula that not only has worked in the past, but based off the skill sets of Luka Dončić and the assets they had, was something that was also duplicative enough for them to recreate in a more modern version for the Mavs. And instead, as we came to grow, again, talking about Dallas Mavericks fans, to attach ourselves to this growth pattern of you starting to build the roster suited to Luka Dončić, you rip it all away by removing the key piece of all that has happened within those 2 years, which is Luka Dončić. So how you applaud for him makes no sense to me.
What's the biggest reason they fell to 3-8? Well, there are two of them. Number one, Jason Kidd wrongly and dumbly tried to play Cooper Flagg at point guard. He's not a point guard at 6'9", especially at age 18 as an NBA rookie, a baby rookie. That was a disaster.
Fair. And I spoke on this earlier on in the season where I said that I felt like there's still, I think I even talked about this last week. The idea that Cooper Flagg being point guard was always going to be a debacle because of the fact that he is a play finisher. He is a high energy, high effort guy. He's always played next to other ball movers, Colin Kneppel, Liam McNeely. He's played in systems where he, although was the most talented player on the team, was never asked to be heliocentric, was never asked to be a primary ball handler, was never asked to be someone who constantly initiates offense and is with the intention of trying to set guys up. He's a guy who is a high energy play finisher. He's a secondary rebounder. He is somebody who is great on the offensive glass. He is somebody who, although can get to that mid-range shot very lethally, he is still someone that at the same time is trying to refine his offensive game in terms of what he's able to do in isolation. And when you look at some of the greatest point guards across the league right now, some of the best point guards, even at the middle portion of the tiering at the point guard position, the most important factor at the PG spot is the ability to shot generate. And that's something that Cooper Flagg, again at an 18-year-old stint, still is trying to develop a certain level of consistent offense enough to be played through as that lead initiator, as that lead ball handler on a night-to-night basis. So I do agree that this wasn't a great move, but I also would say that from a developmental standpoint, in this time frame where they felt like they didn't have a true point guard to rely on, there were still some things they could have gained or could gain from having Cooper play a little bit of point guard. The issue more so was sticking with it in a sense of not having anybody really to eventually relieve him of this duty, because clearly D'Angelo Russell was not that, and it doesn't sound like there have been any real conversations around the Mavericks targeting a point guard to potentially take this off his plate as well. And I think that's the biggest thing that hurts them.
And then, yes, you're right. Anthony Davis, once again, has been hurt. He pulled a calf. He's missed 6 games. He wanted to play last night. They said, hold off, hang on, wait. Let's make sure you're right for the long stretch of the NBA season.
Which you should do, given the mere fact that every single time that Anthony Davis allows himself to come back on the floor within the first 24 to 48 hours of when it sounds like he's been cleared for real NBA action, he ends up re-aggravating it within a week or two of when he gets back on the floor, which then positions another setback for him and positions the team to once again have to adjust to life without Anthony Davis.
And I'm going to remind you, even if you say he's always been hurt,
yeah,
Anthony Davis is a flat-out stud, difference maker, life changer. He did lead Kentucky to an NCAA championship. That
we can't do that. We're not doing this. Age 30 plus Anthony Davis. We talk about what my boy did at 18, 19 years old at Kentucky. Be for real. Be for real. When we start making claims like he did lead Kentucky to an NCAA championship, we're losing the plot on who Anthony Davis has carved himself out to be in the NBA. Is he an elite player when healthy? Yes. Is he one of the best defensive options in the NBA when healthy? Yes. Is he somebody that I think is capable of being an MVP caliber player when healthy? Yes. You know the crazy consistent thing about that entire run that I just went on is none of those things have come to fruition. He hasn't been a DPOY. He hasn't been an all-NBA caliber player over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And yet the one thing that was constant within all of that, when healthy. And guess what? He just hasn't been.
That is on his resume. And he did lead LeBron's Los Angeles Lakers, albeit in the bubble, albeit a Mickey Mouse championship, but he led them to that championship as a Laker. He's got championship in his makeup.
Mind you, he just said that the championship was Mickey, but he's got championship DNA, yet anybody who addresses that championship run as Mickey is giving the perception that they didn't meet the kind of resistance, they didn't meet the kind of expectations that tend to come with a true championship run under different circumstances. Obviously, the bubble was one of the biggest debacles we've ever seen, not just in NBA history, but in sports in terms of getting a different feel for the game in a scenario under stress, under pressure, under the weight of societal issues as well at that time. You're essentially saying that he has championship DNA, while on the front end of that, again, kind of giving him a backhanded compliment because you acknowledge that on that same championship run, that it wasn't to the caliber of what a truly respected championship run would look like.
This team is going to be very good if, in fact, he stays healthy. And I've seen him stay healthy for long stretches and be the best two-way player in all of basketball. The combination of his monster offense with his defensive demon defense, demonic defense, game-changing defense, it makes him more valuable than Luka Dončić.
Full cam. Can't. I what? It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And you're talking to somebody who is so, I lean so heavily towards giving the nod to the two-way player. I always do, because I think the upside of being a high-level defensive player while being able to go out and average 18 plus points, 20 plus points a night, it makes you a special talent because you're somebody that's able to impact the game on both sides of the floor in a way that makes it where you're always going to have to be game planned for your complete package, not just for what you're able to do stuffing the stat sheet. But to say that is more valuable than Luka Dončić and what he brings to the table, I think is not factoring in what Luka Dončić does in terms of being able to get his teammates involved as a passer. I think what you see with DeAndre Ayton so far this season and just how easy the game seems to look for him as a rim roller this year. Like, we've seen more than a few instances. That game against Charlotte was a perfect representation where there were a handful of pick and roll opportunities in the first and second quarter of that game where DeAndre Ayton just simply ran the floor. Had a really good pick and roll slip screen to the rim. Dončić puts it right where it needs to go, and DeAndre Ayton does the rest. And Ayton hasn't had a passer like that since Chris Paul. You can make the argument that with the attention that Luka Dončić requires on the perimeter, paired with the kind of high upside he has as a passer, that Ayton hasn't played with anybody who's able to really maximize his lob threat ability the way Luka Dončić has so far this year. So you take away things like that. You take away the game breaker ability that Luka Dončić has as a scorer in the terms of being able to put real pressure on the defense, where similar to how we used to talk about Steph Curry, like he could put together so much of an offensive flurry that it actually flusters the opposing team in a real way, because they're looking at the situation like, this guy can't seem to miss. He's getting everything he wants. And no matter what kind of shot he takes, it just always looks like it's going in. There's an intimidation factor that goes with being just so offensively dominant. And so you're almost bypassing that by simply saying, well, Anthony Davis is the two-way player and Luka Dončić doesn't play any defense. Well, guess what? Luka Dončić was on a top 5 defense just 2 seasons ago. And even if we was the weakest link, it wasn't enough to truly hurt the rest of what was around him. And if anything, he's easy to build around with more defensive infrastructure, as we saw Nico Harrison do 2 seasons ago, because he's so dominant offensively that if you just get a handful of guys out there that can shoot the three and defend at a high level, he can carry you the rest of the way. And essentially, that's a good part of what got them to the NBA Finals, was guys hitting timely three-point shots and everybody being able to guard at a high level, and Luka Dončić bringing the rest home. So you're diminishing what Luka Dončić's impact on the game as an elite generational offensive player is, to try to make a point about a two-way player who, again, also is only this caliber of a player when he's actually healthy and on the floor, something you can't necessarily hang your head on.
Cooper Flagg last night, ironically, had his first good game as he gets his rookie legs underneath him. He had 26, 9, and 4.
He did. It looked that
he's going to get nothing but better. Kyrie Irving is said, even according to Kyrie, to be on schedule to come back. I don't know when, first of the year, maybe midseason, but he's going to be back. I've got these Dallas Mavericks playing the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. You can book it. They are that good. They have a chance. I said Thunder in 7 over the Mavericks. That's how loaded the Mavericks are going to be.
Oh. Wow. I don't know what else he says. And I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I don't care. I don't care. I could care less. If Skip Bayless is right when the season is over, there are a ton of things that had to have leaned right in the Dallas Mavericks direction. Yes, you can rebound. Yes, you can rebound from 3-8. Yes, you can genuinely bounce back from a 3-8 start and get things back on the road. But shouldn't the Nico Harrison firing signal to everyone, that some version of a fire sale is coming? The way that you dust your hands off of the situation with Nico Harrison is by essentially separating yourself as much as humanly possible from the things that he had his hand in. Could you find a way to send Klay Thompson back to the Golden State Warriors on a friendly deal and hopefully get some kind of young asset back, or at least a early second round pick or something, just to, get him out the way? Potentially. Do you move off of Anthony Davis and send him somewhere like the Miami Heat, or send him somewhere like, I have no idea. We're going to watch a video in a minute where I think there's a couple of ideas that could be thrown out there, but like, do you shop PJ Washington? Do you shop Daniel Gafford? Like, everything points to this team positioning themselves to really hit a strong reset and detach themselves from the Nico Harrison era as much as humanly possible, because even though Nico may not be there, the players, and by proxy the expectations attached to those players, position them to still be in this conversation of, so are they supposed to be on the timetable of 3 to 5 years? Are they supposed to be this elite level defense that's going to be making a run at perennial postseason visits? As long as the roster still looks in the mold of what it was that Nico Harrison built, everything that came with that is still intact. And so that sends the message to me that, like, there's no way in the world that this team is gonna face the Oklahoma City Thunder, who will be the number 1 seed. So essentially he's saying that the Mavericks are gonna win in the play-in tournament and make it as an 8th seed in this upcoming playoff picture. Not only do I not think they're going to be there, I genuinely don't know if Anthony Davis is still going to be on the team to help them do it. And I think that's kind of one of the most important points. But with that being said, I think this is a perfect way to transition to our very last video we'll be reacting to. And again, this will be another one where we don't watch the entire thing, but it's going to be something where we get the chance to get an understanding of what the Dallas Mavericks do next. I think the biggest thing next for the Dallas Mavericks is to figure out, A, are they trading Anthony Davis? B, what is the market for someone like Anthony Davis right now? And C, do you feel good moving off of Anthony Davis, even if the value you get in return is nowhere near what you would think he would be worth given name value and everything else? Because I think there's a true reality where Anthony Davis is not going to go for what Mikal Bridges went for. He's not going to go for, I don't think he's going to go for what KD went for. There's a world where somebody, if this Anthony Davis side of things falls apart within Dallas, and they're just like, we need to move off from him. We need to separate ourselves as much from this Nico Harrison move as possible. Whatever we can get, whatever the best thing we can get, we'll take it is. There's a world where the Dallas Mavericks are going to get fleeced again, essentially, all to try their best to take themselves away from the drama that's been built over the last 4 to 5 months. And that's crazy to think that there's going to be a team that, despite everything we've said about Anthony Davis in this video, is going to get a real high upside defensive player added to their roster. Could you imagine if he gets added to the Miami Heat next to Bam Adebayo? Could you imagine if they were able to move him, ironically, to a team like the San Antonio Spurs, where Anthony Davis could be the four like he's always wanted, and the guy next to him playing the natural traditional five is Victor Wembanyama? Because the San Antonio Spurs have the scratch to be able to do so. And from both a pick equity standpoint and young assets they could potentially send to Dallas to sweeten the deal. Could you imagine? Could you imagine a universe where the Oklahoma City Thunder are just like, look, we got 1.5 million picks. Dallas is desperate. We can give them some of the crappy ones, and as long as they say first round next to them, we're able to get Anthony Davis and add that to a center rotation that has Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, who probably won't even be on this team next season. And likely you might end up even trading him in the acquisition for Anthony Davis, giving the Dallas Mavericks an expiring contract, because I think he's on a team option, which would be financially favorable to the Dallas Mavericks to free up some cap space next season. But now you add Anthony Davis to a front court with Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams and center Jalen Williams. Like, that's insane. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at point guard. And AJ Mitchell, who's coming off the bench and killing right now. Like, there's teams that have the scratch to give them a low ball deal that's still just good enough to look like something to the Dallas Mavericks, to essentially kill two birds with one stone. On one front, you get away from the centerpiece of the Nico Harrison debacle, which is trading for Anthony Davis. And on the other side, if you're able to get a first or multiple firsts of any kind for Anthony Davis, regardless of how valuable they are, you take those and you take your ability to now lean into roster building around Cooper Flagg long-term over being stuck in the quicksand of being attached to this situation.